delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
Are there any lines a reality TV producer won't cross in the pursuit of ratings, no matter how much harm it causes?
You had a photo shoot where we made you a different ethnicity.
One day it's forcing a model into blackface for a small chance at a grand prize, or it's endlessly berating terrified young contestants for the sake of ratings.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
At the very top of the Hollywood pyramid, award shows create a perfect storm, one where all eyes are on the stars and their shiny trophies, with just enough chaos in the room to bring out an inevitably viral moment.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
I'm talking about you, Timothee Chalamet. Yeah, those opera ballet comments aren't hitting quite the same right now, are they?
I admire people, and I've done it myself, to go on a talk show and go, hey, we gotta keep movie theaters alive. You know, we gotta keep this genre alive. And I don't wanna be working in ballet or opera or, you know, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership.
But when everyone behaves, when the host is dull and nothing goes wrong, what's keeping the viewers glued to their screens and the post-show conversation buzzing?
He said he thought he was in safe hands at the BAFTAs, and the BBC should have prevented his involuntary tics from being broadcast.
Sometimes all it takes is a hot mic, an exploited audience member, and total control of the edit by producers, and anything can be transformed into ratings, especially the most humiliating and offensive moments that were meant to be cut.
You're just mad you left out jazz.
Picture this. You're a Hollywood star at the peak of your career. You've spent months pouring yourself into a film about racial discrimination in the American South. Endless nights on set, taxing emotional labor, playing not one, but two characters who take on the KKK and, along the way, kill a few vampires. Because, of course, nothing's really a movie in Hollywood unless you put some vampires in there. It's your dream project, culturally accessible and entertaining, yet grounded in the very real racial violence your grandparents endured and the injustices you still face today. For the first time, it feels like you're making work that both celebrates your culture and sends a clear message that racism is more dangerous than any mythological villain. Better yet, the critics and audiences love it, okay? Can we talk about 16 Oscar nominations? So the momentum builds. You and your collaborators begin receiving recognition from institutions that have historically ignored or sidelined the culture, and for once, it feels like a genuine turning point for the industry. In fact, the film goes on to become the single most Oscar-nominated movie in history. And we'll talk about the results, which literally just happened a couple of hours before me sitting down to film. In the mix of the awards season, you fly overseas to the UK to stand on a global stage and present an award at the British Oscars. It's the first award of the night, so you're setting the tone for the rest of the ceremony. You walk out alongside your fellow Black castmates, smiling, poised, and ready to light up the room. But as you read from a teleprompter about 100 feet away, the unthinkable happens. Someone in the audience shouts the most vile racial slur imaginable, and it hits you like a freight train. Your body reacts before your mind does. Your muscles tense up. Your smile collapses into confusion. Your mind races as you fight every instinct to react, because the person who just harmed you in front of the entire world who's watching was also speaking through a disability, and likely had no intention or control over what they said because of the disability. But regardless of the intent, in that moment, you feel it in your body, your mind, and your soul. And all you're allowed to do is carry on as though nothing happened, to keep smiling, to keep reading, to keep performing. Tap dance for them. The show must go on. Welcome to the chaos. Oh, hi, hello, it's Swoop, and welcome to the dark waters of the Suspool, the place where everything and everyone is sus, maybe even us. Come on in, the water's fine. Welcome back, Suspirians. Grab your tea and crumpets and Zen meditation apps, because this story is about to piss you off like Gordon Ramsay looking at uncooked seafood.
That's raw. He brings that pissing over, and the big surprise is the bass is raw.
If you're new here, welcome to my second channel. On my main channel, Swoop, I do full-length deep dive documentary work, and over here we dip. We skinny dip into the dark waters of the cesspool where everything is unhinged, so welcome to the chaos of my mind.
Standing ovation. Swap!
If you're into mind-bending, dark, and twisted tales, subscribe to this channel, bring a towel, tell your friends, and go ahead and start shouting at the like button, but instead of using words, shout the way every opera singer and ballet dancer wanted to at Timothee Chalamet and see what happens next. Spoiler alert, he doesn't win any of his Oscar nominations. Also, big shout out to everyone who hypes these videos. Thank you so much for that support. There's like a hype feature that you can hype this to help spread the reach and help us grow our community. And also I want to take a quick second to give a huge thank you to everyone who watched my Dr. Phil documentary out on my main channel. I'm so blown away by the response to that doc. The comments, y'all have been so encouraging and so incredible. I incorporated some new shots into that, some new editing style, along with the extensive research and deep diving that we did into Dr. Phil and all of the crimes and the controversies around him and others in his orbit. Thank you so much for your support over there. And I'll have that linked below if you haven't seen it already. We're very, very proud of that piece. And so yeah, of course you can subscribe here as well. Actually, when I look at my back end, about 30% of you who regularly watch these videos week after week aren't yet subscribed. You might even think that you are. I get a lot of comments from people saying, oh my gosh, I thought I was subscribed and I checked and I realized I wasn't. So double check that and make sure you tap the bell, turn on notifications, because it is time to lock in. And of course, you can join our Patreon community. You'll get 4 more exclusive videos per month only on Patreon, including the podcast, after school specials, behind the scenes stuff. There's also a free newsletter through Patreon. Of course, you get all the updates. You can see the trailers for the Swoop docs posted there before the piece releases, all in the free newsletter through Patreon. This message is sponsored by Raycon. Okay, Suspirians, real quick before we dip, can you believe that it's almost spring? How on earth is it already March? Now, with the new season, I've been working on refreshing my daily routine and, going outside sometimes. And whether I'm going on walks, running errands, or just getting some fresh air, I love being able to listen to my favorite music or podcast, which is why I am so in love with Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds. Ever since I got these, they have been my go-to when I'm out and about because they're open ear, so you can listen to your favorite shows with super clear audio while still hearing what's happening around you, so you're not completely cut off from the world. And honey, when I tell you that right now you can get them for 20% off, yes, girl! We all know that regular earbuds essentially block like everything out, which is cool sometimes, but like when I'm doing stuff, like I want to hear what's going on around me. Like when you can't hear someone calling your name for the 10th time or, a car coming up behind you, it's getting a little weird, okay? But with Raycon's open earbuds, these just sit right outside your ear canal so you can still get really clear sound, but you're also aware of your surroundings. And honestly, that makes being outside feel a lot safer. They're also super lightweight, which I love because I tend to wear earbuds for long stretches of time. The flexible ear hook rotates so it sits comfortably and they actually stay in place. Like I've worn them on walks, at the gym, while cleaning, and they don't fall out. And honestly, they're so light, I don't even notice that I'm wearing them. And because these are literally not even going in your ear canal, they're just sitting outside of it. Like I completely forget these are on. I can wear them all day, don't even notice it. Love that. They have multi-point connection, which is so incredible. It lets you connect to multiple devices like your phone and laptop, and you can switch between without having to repair, which saves me so much time and hassle. And the battery, honey, okay, so you get 8 hours of playtime and 36 hours of battery with the charging case. And I feel like, I don't know, like I charge these maybe once a week. Raycon also has over 3 million customers and the sound quality is just as good as the way more expensive brands who are charging you way more because of all their like overpriced celebrity endorsements. Raycons are like half the price with exceptional sound quality, and they offer a 30-day guarantee. So dear friends, the Essential Open Earbuds are perfect for refreshing your routine this spring. Go to buyraycon.com/swoop2open to get 20% off. That's buyraycon.com/SWOOPTOOOPEN to get 20% off. Thanks Raycon for supporting our channel and sponsoring, and treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Okay, strap on that swimsuit, grab your nose plugs, and let's dip into the cesspool.
Air BAFTA Flight 2026 is now cleared for takeoff and the auditorium doors are closed. Please turn off all electronic devices except, of course, pacemakers and Ozempic alarms.
The 2026 British Academy of Film and Television Awards, known as the BAFTAs, recently dove headfirst into the shallow end of the cesspool, igniting one of the most complex online debates around race and disability in recent memory. The controversy erupted after a man who was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome in the audience shouted a racial slur while two actors were on stage presenting an award during Black History Month, no less. So, love that for us. And I know that I'm working like a little backwards. The Oscars literally just happened today. I was waiting for that to happen so that I could plug in a few updates to this story. And also the Dr. Phil piece took up like all of my time for like a month or longer. Back to it. This awards show, the BAFTAs, is basically, think of it as like the British Oscars. And it had its fair share of proper awkward moments that night.
Yeah. Maybe, Kylie, have you ever had your gums around a giant jammy dodger? You have now, darling.
There was also a live-action Paddington Bear presenting an award.
That me giving this award is something called a first for BAFTA.
Look, y'all, I'll take almost anything over AI slop these days, okay? Even a demonic bear in a raincoat.
I am the first ever bear to present an award.
But there was nothing quite as toe-curling as this.
The first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
We're here to celebrate the artists who expand what's possible on screen.
This shocking, assumed to be racist moment and the cascading fallout afterwards completely overshadowed the rest of the ceremony. And the aftermath after it exposed just how rampant racism and ableism remain online and in the entertainment industry, and the subject of today's cesspool may actually shock you.
How do we make this year's BAFTA Film Awards really stand out? I want to Marty Supreme this. I went, out Chalamet.
So if you're not familiar with the story at all, let me set the scene real quick. It was the first award of the night, and the Academy Award nominated actors Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, who I adore so much. Oh my gosh, I love Delroy. Okay, listen, I also love, obviously, Michael B. Jordan. If you've been with me for a minute, you've probably heard me say, like here or on my main channel, I would say things like, what in the Michael B. Jordan spread evenly on a buttery biscuit? Because I love these people. They are so talented. I just think they're both so very incredible. But anyways, Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo from the movie Sinners were on stage presenting the award for Best Visual Effects when suddenly the N-word was shouted at them by a white man in front of the entire audience. Look at them, they look incredible. I have so much love for these two. All the flowers deserved. Delroy, oh my gosh, I just cherish him. He's like a national treasure, like Betty White.
Good evening. Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
And there it was, literally one line after, and you see the way their faces completely change because they are now having to instantly digest. The N-word was just shouted at them.
Presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
You could see them just looking to each other, but just maintaining composure, right? Which is the most professional thing that they could do. And I also, there's a part of me that hates like being like, oh, well, good on them for being professional and just working through it. I think that's great. And I think it's also very sad.
We're here to celebrate the artists who expand what's possible on screen.
Effects can create spectacle, but the best work serves character and story.
They bring whole new worlds into existence.
And there it is. Can you imagine? Like, just put yourself in their position right here. I feel like Delroy's face like really says a lot. This is also a situation that none of us had to know about, but we do, and for reasons that I think are far, far worse than you might anticipate, so, okay. In any other context, the intent behind using the N-word would be a disgusting, in my opinion, hate crime, but the man who shouted it at the BAFTAs, we're deducing, didn't say it on purpose. Now, I'm gonna be real. There are many, many people who would argue that he did say it on purpose, but that's not how this disability works. It's a mess, okay? People have their opinions. They're entitled to it, but I'm just going to try to explain it in the best way possible to try to bring some critical thinking, compassion to stories like this, right? So meet John Davidson, a 54-year-old Scottish Tourette's advocate who's been living with Tourette's syndrome for most, if not all of his life. Now, just like with most all disabilities, they affect people differently, right? Like no one is a monolith, and there are different ways someone can experience Tourette's syndrome. Now, for John Davidson, his disability includes vocal tics known as coprolalia, which affects somewhere between 10 and 30% of people living with TS.
Something like playing charades. I'm never ever the person that stands up and has to act out what film it is or whatever, because I can't keep it to myself. You know, I'll stand up and I'll say, Jaws! And I'll go, right, that's my turn over.
According to the Tourette Association of America, coprolalia is defined as, quote, the involuntary outburst of obscene words or socially inappropriate and derogatory remarks. Other examples may include references to genitals, excrement, and sexual acts. Although coprolalia is the most widely known symptom of TS, the majority of patients do not experience this feature. It is most often expressed as a single word, but may involve phrases or sentences.
Research shows that coprolalia tends to latch onto words that are culturally taboo or emotionally charged. The more forbidden a word is in society, the more likely it is to become a tic in severe cases.
And I'm just gonna say right now, this is one of the reasons why, like, we cover these types of stories, right? It's like, I think it's very important to try to destigmatize some of these disabilities that have a lot of negative connotation that people have put around it, by and large, because they either don't understand it, they haven't researched it, or they don't know how it can affect people. And also just, you know, some people are just plain assholes and cruel and want to be a dick to everybody. So,
or misconception I want to talk about is people saying that it must be in his vocabulary if he said it, which is not how coprolalia works. It's not, the filter is removed and you can just say whatever you want to say or that you've been holding back. There's different situations that might trigger the thing that you know and have been taught socially of this would be the worst time to say XYZ. That is where the disability comes in, and that's where it will say, I don't care, this is what you're going to say, and you unfortunately say it. That is part of coprolalia. I don't necessarily have coprolalia. I have Tourette syndrome, but I don't have coprolalia. But I've seen my friends with Tourette syndrome that have coprolalia and see how incredibly hard it is for them getting kicked out of movie theaters, kicked out of restaurants, getting in trouble in school and at work when they're just trying to live and function in society like us.
So John was attending the BAFTAs because there's a movie based on his life called I Swear. The title is a direct reference to his experience with involuntary swearing caused by his neurological condition and the lifelong challenges that have come with it.
Tourette syndrome. Say things that I shouldn't. What can you do? Do you want to come in for something to eat, John?
You wanker. Well, it's nice to meet you too.
Sorry.
Like, if you think about it, like, it's hard to imagine, for me, as someone who does not have this disability, to imagine it, period, for most people. Think about being in a position where your brain essentially, like, to kind of like just really oversimplify it, your brain essentially pushes you to say the absolute worst things possible, or the worst word you know, and you would never yourself use that type of those words or that language, and your brain say those types of things as a vocal tic, right? So John has dedicated his life to spreading awareness for Tourette syndrome because, as the movie depicts, he has been, you know, shunned, misunderstood, and even beaten throughout his life due to his more obscene vocal tics. At one point, he even shouted F the Queen when literally receiving his honor award from the Queen. Imagine you're going there, you're getting this award from the Queen, and you literally go up there and you say F the Queen. Like, right? Like, this is not something that he is intending to do. This is part of the involuntary nature of the way the disability affects him.
Queen.
Sorry, everyone, sorry.
So his racist tic at the BAFTAs ended up playing out like a scene from the movie of his life that he was there for, literally for that movie. Yeah, I know.
Wait, is this a play about us?
Now, according to Variety, John had experienced a series of tics throughout the ceremony leading up to shouting the N-word, including, quote, shouting, "Shut the during BAFTA chair Sarah Putt's opening remarks. Now, thankfully, it's being reported, at least to certain degrees, the ceremony had given the entire crowd advance notice that this might happen. John said in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "I appreciated the announcement to the auditorium in advance of the recording, warning everyone that my tics are involuntary and are not a reflection of my personal beliefs. I was heartened by the round of applause that followed this announcement and felt welcomed and understood in an environment that would normally be impossible for me." It's like, it's tough. It's really tough. I can't even imagine. Now, that was one of the things, maybe the only thing, that BAFTA handled correctly that night. Now, unfortunately, most of society is ignorant to the involuntary verbal outbursts associated with coprolalia, and even those who are aware of the condition are often not used to hearing them. I do hope that this video helps raise awareness, at least some, of just how difficult this condition can be to live with for some people.
I'm baking a cake while having Tourette syndrome. Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Eat eggs. Okay, you do. Oh my god, take the egg. Peeling. Oh no. Okay.
But even with the understanding the space fostered for John, it doesn't take away from the reality that the use of the N-word itself is more historically evil, disrespectful, and dehumanizing than just any other run-of-the-mill cuss word, right? You know, someone saying like, in my direction carries a very different meaning than someone shouting the N-word in my direction, right? And that's what makes this whole situation so complex and why it is so polarizing for people and continues to be, regardless of intent or disability. Setting that aside for a moment, okay? Putting that over here, not referencing that. The impact of having the slur directed at Black people is very real in any setting, let alone at an industry award show in front of all of your peers. It's dehumanizing, degrading, deeply hurtful, and also a form of verbal violence in like just about any other circumstance, right? Like I said, this is complicated. So shortly following John's tic, the host of the ceremony, Alan Cummings, who you might know from The Traitors or as Figan Floop in Spy Kids, they have him read a statement off the teleprompter addressing the tic, the outburst.
You may have heard some strong and offensive language tonight. If you've seen the film I Swear, you will know that film is about the experience of a person with Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome is a disability, and the tics you've heard tonight are involuntary, which means the person who has Tourette syndrome has no control over their language. We apologize if you were offended.
Well, sure, yeah, it was better than nothing, though there's part of me that I don't even know if I'm convinced that that's true. The statement left a lot to be desired with a lot of people, understandably. Again, this is a very nuanced situation. There was no acknowledgement of Black Academy members, no reinforcement of general condemnation of that specific slur, and the phrasing, you know, if you were offended implies that, you know, there was somehow a world in which Black members wouldn't be offended of the word, regardless and irrespective of the disability or not. But at the same time, I also understand, and I don't know if this was a conversation that they had or not. These are one of the things that I would love to know, and I don't know that we ever will. To go up there and to disavow the word as it was said from John could then make it seem like it was voluntary of him when it wasn't. It was due to his disability. And so if you condemn that, then is it condemning the tic and the disability? You know what I mean? But at the same time, you also intrinsically, for people who are deeply affected by that word and that language, regardless of where it's coming from, also just want to like reinforce that that is not a good word. We understand why it may have been said involuntarily, but we also want to acknowledge that that's just, this is why it's a mess, okay? This is why it is a mess. And of course, you know, people on the internet, especially Twitter, handled this perfectly well and with sanity and common sense. No, they didn't at all.
I think Chuck is pointing out a double standard here, Adrian. I mean, take hip hop. We've talked about this on the show before. You have African-American rappers saying N-word this and N-word that, but a Caucasian can't.
So say it.
Say what?
Say the word you want to say.
I'm not saying that I want to say it. I'm just saying that I can't.
Sure you can. Say it. Say it right now. I will say it with you.
Okay, this is hypocritical. You know we can't.
Sure you can. This is America. Both of you.
Now, Vulture reported John left the show shortly after the incident, saying, and I quote, "I have spent my life trying to support and empower the Tourette's community and teach empathy, kindness, and understanding from others, and I will continue to do so. I chose to leave the auditorium early into the ceremony as I was aware of the distress my tics were causing." However, again, setting aside John for a moment, what about the producers of BAFTA? See, the worst racial slur against Black people was broadcast in a public institution that has historically marginalized Black creatives, and there was no proper recognition of the impact or attempt to address the word itself. They chose, from our understanding at least, to keep the slur in the broadcast when it went to the public, even though they had a damn near 2-hour tape delay, meaning they had about 2 hours or so to cut the word out before airing it to millions of people. Instead, they did not. To my knowledge, none of the show producers or financiers have TS, and they chose to humiliate Michael B. and Delroy, as well as basically all Black artists, by leaving the slur in the show, which also humiliates John, who was literally there to try and destigmatize and educate people about Tourette's syndrome. So the producers humiliating all of the people involved here.
This was obviously very important for Tourette's syndrome as well. Tonight, John Davidson was there, and in the broadcast, you could hear him shouting quite a lot, and some words that people will have found offensive. But
yeah.
What would you say about that?
Well, first of all, they're tics. He's ticking, and we have to understand that the way we perceive Tourette's is a joint responsibility. It's not shouting obscenities. It's not being abusive. It's Tourette's and they're tics. And so if it can lead to a deeper understanding of Tourette's syndrome and what tics actually are, then I think if our movie is a part of that conversation, then that's a really incredible thing.
And that's the difference: impact versus intent. John didn't intend harm, but perhaps the producers did. These industries have historically marginalized all types of vulnerable communities. So, why stop now, right? Susan, are you listening to this?
I will say it with you.
Okay, this is hypocritical. You know we can't.
Sure you can. This is America. Both of you. Say it.
All right, I think we can move on.
Why? Why move on when you want to say it? Both of you want to say it. Huh? All together, everybody.
So it left a massive impact that rippled out through not just the industry, but public discourse internationally. There are some people in this world, because I have experienced them firsthand many times throughout my career, and I continue to experience. I literally just went through a whole ridiculous racist situation with this whole. I'm not even, y'all. I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I'm not even gonna get into that. I'll tell that story another time. But these are things that happen, things that I face on a regular basis, things that my peers face on a regular basis, and it's like when moments like this happen on the grand stage in front of millions of people, it's like it brings out the absolute worst drudges of society and people who are like, oh, it's my chance. I get to throw the N-word around even more, and then I get to lecture people about how you're just so woke and you shouldn't feel anything about the words. So that's how I feel about that. The moment itself was just the beginning of this conversation. Apologies and statements started coming out, and Black celebrities, commentators, and again, the worst of the internet started sharing their opinions that snowballed into the Suspool.
What should have been Britain's big night to celebrate art and culture, with royalty mixing with the Hollywood elite, instead is mired in controversy this morning.
A shocking moment, a racial slur was yelled out as Sinner stars Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo presented an award.
That moment at the BAFTA Awards, leaving viewers in shock.
Yeah, it's like a woke trolley problem where on the one hand, it's like, Black folks ain't trying to hear this. Okay, calm down. You don't know what I'm about to say?
This isn't convenient. It's very complex. And for me, there is no one answer. This is a societal issue. And we need to think about how we move forwards. And as Greg quite rightly said, how do we create space for it? This is an emotional situation.
So we've said, it's crucial to examine this controversy with critical thinking. So we learn that it's possible to acknowledge the reality that the misunderstanding of a disability can accidentally cause others harm, while also recognizing where accountability is still lacking in those who could provide safeguards for all involved, and discussing the real harm caused by broadcasting a slur on the national stage, especially during such a special moment for two Black actors in the spotlight. The statements put forward by the BBC and BAFTA shortly after lacked any meaningful acknowledgement of the harm accused by the slur. The BBC saying, and quote, "Some viewers may have heard strong and offensive language during the BAFTA Film Awards. This arose from involuntary verbal tics associated with Tourette syndrome, and as explained during the ceremony, it was not intentional." The funny thing is, it wasn't explained to the general public, now wasn't it? Now wasn't it, right? You explain it to the live in-person audience, not the millions of people who saw it afterwards.
Yeah, big deal. Prince William in the audience, lots of Hollywood stars in the audience. This is not what anyone wanted to happen. The BBC is apologizing. They've come under a lot of fire.
And the BAFTA press release was a little bit better at taking accountability, but not for the broadcast. Quote, "We take full responsibility for putting our guests in a very difficult situation, and we apologize to all. We will learn from this and keep inclusion at the core of all we do, maintaining our belief in film and storytelling as a critical conduit for compassion and empathy." And again, I can't stress enough, like, these are the types of things that you could have also spared. You could have spared Michael B. and Delroy first and foremost from this being out in the general public, and then they're being asked to give statements and get their thoughts and all that kind of stuff. You also could have spared John. Okay, you could have spared the person living with the disability who's there trying to advocate for it. You could have spared all of these people if you just cut it out.
It was uncomfortable as a Black person sitting there, but also a moment for Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, massive moment for them being at the BAFTAs, and you could just see the colour drain from their faces. It was a really sad situation all around.
Now, this sentiment felt so hollow that it compelled Black executive producer and showrunner Jonte Richardson to withdraw his membership from BAFTA altogether, which he had worked his whole life essentially to achieve, writing on LinkedIn, quote, "I cannot and will not contribute my time, energy, and expertise to an organization that has repeatedly failed to safeguard the dignity of its Black guests, members, and the Black creative community. This is particularly unfortunate given that this year's cohort boasts some incredible Black talent, especially one of my favorite shows of 2025, Just Act Normal. However, when an organization like BAFTA, with its own long history of systemic racism, refuses to acknowledge the harm inflicted on both the Black and disabled communities," see, he gets it as well, both communities, "and offer an appropriate apology, remaining involved would be tantamount to condoning its behavior." And like, I'm not gonna blame people who remain in the organization. That's not what this is about at all. It's a mess. It's a mess that the organization could have spared damn near everybody, right?
What is this guy Jonty saying, that they should never have invited the Tourette's guy in case he shouted the N-word? I don't quite get it.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes zero sense for him to resign from BAFTA, because actually, as I just said, BAFTA handled it well in that they, in advance, warned the audience. And what else could they do? As you say, the film was about Tourette's.
As backlash mounted and people online started debating, ableism and racism, Black celebrities spoke out, like Jamie Foxx, who wrote on Instagram, quote, "Nah, he meant that shit. Unacceptable." Yeah. I mean, obviously, Jamie Foxx is entitled to his opinion. I don't agree with it. I don't believe that John meant it. I think there was an opportunity for a lot more nuance there. And I have no idea if he has changed his mind since getting more information on it. But a lot of people have felt of that regard. They've felt like, well, you used that word, which must mean you have that and you harbor that type of racism in your soul. And so you chose to use that. I've seen people talking about it, you're hiding behind that. And that's not how the disability works. I wish people were willing to have actual human to human, realistic conversations about very complex situations instead of just leveling a whole blanket, like acting like you just know everything about, like, oh no, they absolutely meant it, and like I'm not even gonna begin to be open about what the actual inner workings and details of this might be. But I think it still highlights how hurtful the word is, and most likely reflects, you know, his own experience in the industry. So again, that's why I'm not gonna like just be like, oh, Jamie Foxx, you're terrible. No, like Jamie Foxx is a black man in this industry. I think he's probably been through a significant amount of ways that probably most everyone in the world can't even possibly imagine. It's one thing, this is like something that I've learned over time being in the entertainment industry. Y'all know, obviously, I make content here, I make content on my main channel, but also I'm a filmmaker. I make films that are not on platform. I've directed music videos. I'm a recording artist. I've toured the world. I've done all of that stuff, and I'm continue to do that. And this is one of my creative outlets here. And what I have learned is, you know, before I was like doing anything of any level in the industry, and obviously I'm not like, you know, huge, massive celebrity, whatever, but you know, I've carved out my space and I'm going to respect the space that I have carved out. I have learned that like you truly do not know what it is like to be like in, you know, the entertainment industry and experience the misogyny, my gosh, the sexual violence, which I have experienced multiple times in this industry that I haven't even really begun to talk about, the racism, the ableism in it, which I've experienced as well. There's so much that you don't know until you know. It's another element in a bizarre dimension when there's the public figure element where people in the public are watching and weighing in with their opinions. It's a whole other type of beast. Wendell Pierce, an American actor and Tony Award-winning producer, tweeted, quote, "It's infuriating that the first reaction wasn't complete and full-throated apologies to Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan." And I definitely agree with that. The insult to them takes priority. It doesn't matter the reasoning for the racist sly. And I agree partially there. We have to be very careful to not disparage the disability. This was not a voluntary thing from John, in my belief. I believe him when he says that. I believe people who live with a disability. But I do also believe that BAFTA could have given a nice, robust apology to Michael B. and Delroy, at least backstage, and we'll talk about what didn't happen backstage. Vanity Fair spoke to Delroy at the after party that night, where he said that they, quote, "did what we had to do while presenting, but that he also wished someone from BAFTA spoke to us afterwards." Can you imagine? That's where it really, like, it just like hit me in my core. I was like, what do you mean they didn't talk to them afterwards?
Do you or the organisation condone what Isaac McAdoo did today?
What a stupid fucking question.
Like, what do you mean they didn't immediately, as they were walking, you know, from the stage to the holding area or the backstage area or the green room or the after party, literally so many different spaces that they had to go. What do you mean no one from BAFTA came to them to say, we all understand the situation here. We just want to extend our apologies that was language that you had to heard. We understand the context of it, but also that's something that you have now experienced that wasn't fair for you. Where was that? Where was that? Why didn't you check in? Okay?
We apologize if you were offended.
I'm sure after Michael B's Oscar win tonight, you're probably wanting to check in now.
For Delroy and Michael B., the BAFTAs should have immediately grabbed them and said, "We are so sorry.
Yes,
this is not something that we anticipated, and it's, you know, this is what went down," because they told the audience when the audience first came in.
Now, Sinner's production designer Hannah Beachler called it a throwaway apology in a series of tweets discussing how viscerally uncomfortable the whole evening was for her. Quote, "I keep trying to write about what happened at the BAFTAs and I can't find the words. The situation is almost impossible, but it happened 3 times that night, and one of the 3 times was directed at myself on the way to dinner after the show." It's heavy. It's heavy. And while Hannah eloquently expressed her truth, she was met with so much disgusting vitriol in the replies, as if, "Susan, are you surprised? Because I'm not surprised." People saying things like, quote, one of my favorites, "Why are you making yourself the victim? I just literally threw my phone. Literally, I don't understand what this thing is. When something affects, like a racial slur, for example, again, we're putting John and the disability over here. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about, in general, hearing the most horrific racial slur and hearing it multiple times is what it sounds like. For people to be like, why are you making yourself the victim? We are literally all victims when that fucking word is used. Anytime a racist act happens, an ableist act happens, we are all victims of it because it degrades the moral fiber and fabric of our collective human society. We're not just humans in our little city. We're not just humans in our state or in our country. We are humans on this planet, and anytime something like this happens, we have all become victims of it when we could become better and victors of it. There's victims and there's victors, and the victor side of it is just eradicating this type of language, eradicating this type of hatred from the human consciousness, from our souls, to stop teaching it to children, to stop leveraging it against somebody that you don't like, to stop using it as an attack for somebody that you're trying to cut down because you're jealous of their talent, or you're jealous of, you know, the job they have or the way they look, or the joy that they carry in life. This is nothing more than trying to destroy the joy and the spirit in other human beings. And when you try to do that, it destroys it in all of us. So yeah, she's not making herself the victim. We're all victims of this, and we literally could end racism and ableism, but it just takes not being a dick to do it. There. That was my little tangent. Back to the story. So that's just the tip of the iceberg of the racism this whole thing unleashed online. And when I say tip of the iceberg, I literally mean I'm not going to repeat the zillions of times that I've seen the N-word. Tip of the iceberg meaning I have to so thoroughly sterilize this to even be able to have a conversation about it here, which is super duper fun.
And then he'll call us unpredictable, and then this is the thread where look at that, blacks have killed 103,000 more whites than white. Okay, just miss me with literally all of this. Black people are the single worst poison on the earth. Y'all ruin everything, Jamil. You know it just as well as I do.
These evil replies exemplify why it's so important to have this conversation. All right, so this is a clip from one of my favorite creators, Rashonda Lias. I love her so much. So huge shout out to her. I'm gonna read a little bit from her bio. Multi-award winning creator, author, a diversity advocate, and host. Let's hear what she has to say in her very petty little way, because I couldn't resist.
Black people are expected to swallow disrespect at every turn. Take the high road, grin and bear it. Why? Because people don't see us as human. Yeah. They still subscribe to, they don't feel pain internally or externally. And on top of that, they're afraid of our anger.
Yes, she's spot on with that. I'm in full agreement with that there. It is a situation, like I was talking about when Michael B. and Delroy were very much like just, smile and continue to perform and do your job. I have experienced it. So many, if not all of my Black peers and friends have experienced it in whatever industries they are in. We are expected to take abuse, racism, misogynoir directed at Black women. We are just expected to smile and to tap dance and perform through it all and act as though it doesn't affect us. Because if we speak out so often, it's still very much a thing. Watch out for the angry Black woman. That is something that I have experienced so many times in my life and continue to this day. I'm expected to just take it and to not say anything, to just be reserved and to just, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and all of that. And obviously not to you in our community. This is something that vulnerable, marginalized communities are still not seen as fully human to a lot of people, particularly people in this administration. What do you mean you just portrayed them as apes in the video?
And on top of that, they're afraid of our anger. And they should be, because it's righteous. At every turn, we are disrespected, no matter where we are, and we are expected to take it.
It's expected to take it. And that is what is so exhausting.
Absolutely not. No one is debating the fact that man has a disability. That is not the problem. an apology was deserved, and not a blanket one to the audience, to those that were affected. And for those that think, oh, it's just a word, tell it to those that heard that word right before swinging from a tree.
That part. That part.
Or being set on fire or tarred and feathered. It's not just a word. And that is the problem. And another thing, you all believe that here today in our Lord 2026, that you can say that to a person like me. And I would have you know that you would be picking your wisdom teeth up off the ground. Absolutely not. I don't tolerate disrespect. I get real disrespectful because all high roads are now closed.
All high roads are now closed. Yeah, this is a sentiment with a lot of people. And again, I'm separating out John from this. I don't think that it was intentional. I think this was, I believe him when he says this is part of the disability. Much, much more so an apology from BAFTA in the way they handled it and the way they broadcast it is really necessary, was really necessary. And I believe that's what she's speaking about as well. It's also worth acknowledging that some of the online backlash has unfairly spiraled over into the disabled community, with people implying that John Davidson should not have attended the event. But that is not the solution either, in my opinion. Like, the real work is ensuring that all spaces are accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. And if that means the producers have to take extra time and care to create a safer space for everyone before, during, and after, then so be it. Now, John gave his first interview since the event to Variety, who reported, quote, Davidson's team, or I guess his team, shares that he's reached out to the studio handling Sinners in order to apologize to Jordan, Lindo, and production designer Hannah Beachler. Now, when the interviewer asked him about his Tourette syndrome and whether or not he knows what words are going to come out of his mouth, he said, quote, Tourette's can feel spiteful and searches out the most upsetting tic for me personally and for those around me. What you hear me shouting is literally the last thing in the world I believe. It is the opposite of what I believe. The most offensive word that I ticked at the ceremony, for example, is a word I would never use and would completely condemn if I did not have Tourette's. Now, among everyone chiming in, there's one particular population that is uniquely qualified to speak on the issue. People who live at this intersection every day, and people I think who haven't been platformed enough. Black creators who have Tourette syndrome, some of whom started making videos to offer their perspective.
As a Black woman with Tourette syndrome, I think I have valuable information to add to the discourse about the BAFTAs. A lot of people are saying that it seemed like that was the only time that John Davidson ticked, right when it was perfect for him to say the N-word. That was the only time he ticked. A lot of times there might be motor tics that are going on, which is movement that we might not see because obviously the camera is elsewhere throughout the show. And sitting there and assuming that that's the only time he ticked is also giving the impression that you're assuming that he did it on purpose, which brings me to my second point. A lot of people are saying they understand that, you know, Tourette syndrome is involuntary and he can't control it, but he shouldn't have said that. That's conflicting. You are now saying that you don't understand what involuntary and uncontrollable means. Now, I completely understand the complexity and duality of the situation, and even though it was unintentional, involuntary, it's still being harmful. Obviously, as a Black woman, I get it, especially in the times that we are in. The intention doesn't mean that the harm or the hurt wasn't there. 100% understand that, which is why I feel that we should be focusing on the BAFTA's editing team as to why that was kept.
As more details from this event came out, it started to look like the BBC programmers may have intentionally left the moment in and capitalized on John's disability for ratings and rage baited everyone for views in the process.
That was voluntary. That was controllable.
Have you ever said it?
No, sir.
Try it.
I don't like to say it.
Try it.
Really? Seriously?
We're not going to have this conversation unless you say it.
Buckle up, because this story is about to get as sus as Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface in Tropic Thunder for giggles.
Just to get up that hill. Now we up in the big leagues.
One thing that's crucial to understand this story is that the BAFTA ceremony isn't a live broadcast, as I mentioned earlier. It's on a 2-hour delay. They do red carpet, they do the show, and then the BBC has 2 hours to change or edit anything they want before it goes live. And oh, Susan, did they? Yes, they did. We thought they didn't. I guess they missed cutting everything. Nope, they made cuts. Turns out that the BBC had no problem cutting multiple things from their broadcast, so including filmmakers Wale Davis and Akinola Davis Jr. saying Free Palestine in their acceptance speech.
Your stories yesterday, today, and forever. For Nigeria, for London, the Congo, Sudan, Free Palestine. Thank you.
The Guardian reported they also cut out, quote, a joke by Cumming that appeared to reference Donald Trump, and the word piss said by Best Film and Best Director Paul Thomas Anderson was also bleeped out.
And anybody that says movies aren't any good anymore just can piss right off, because it's a great fucking year.
Allegedly, they also cut out multiple other tics that John Davidson shouted that night. Vogue reported, quote, the BBC, a bastion of political neutrality that carefully edited out any references to Palestine in the broadcast, as well as a homophobic slur that Davidson directed at Alan Cumming, managed to leave the N-word in. I wonder why the fuck that is, good sir. I don't know why I read it like that. John and the good sir part, that was the that was me, okay? I'm leaving that in. I'm not cutting that out. Except I might bleep it. Or maybe I won't. You know what? I'm gonna leave it in there, okay? Fuck that. Now, John also corroborated this claim, telling Variety that he would, quote, appreciate reports of the event explaining that I ticked perhaps 10 different offensive words on the night of the awards. What a situation, man. So if they were able to cut out so much of the show, I can't help but wonder why they would possibly leave in the most extreme slur of the night. Hint, hint, it's not hard to guess why the leave in the most extreme slur of the night, and let me preface by saying I hate it here. The Guardian reported that, quote, the producers overseeing the ceremony for the BBC were doing so from a truck and say they simply did not hear the slur. I don't think I believe you, sir. Like, let me recap, okay? They were able to hear everything else they cut. There were people in the room who heard it, and there was a literal half-assed apology statement that Cummings had to read on the teleprompter. So no, Stephen, I don't think, Stephen's just a random name I pulled up, but no, Stephen, Susan, Stephen, I don't think you had no idea that this happened. There's literally no possible way in my head, in this logical universe that my brain likes to live in most of the time. Sometimes it's questionable, but today I think it's quite logical. There is no world where I think that this wasn't being chattered about and talked about by everyone immediately after it happened, all throughout the rest of the ceremony, and on radios and comms to the people in the broadcast booths and the trucks whose responsibility it was to flag things to be cut before they publish it to the world. I'm just applying like the lightest little hand of critical thinking here.
Why on earth would the BBC have a 2-hour delay in broadcasting? Why on earth would they broadcast that pain to the nation for millions of people to be further damaged by that, to be traumatized by that? And I just thought, this is just unacceptable.
So not only did the BBC leave the slur in the broadcast, exposing that harm to a global audience, but BAFTA's production team also broke promises they had made to John about honoring his disability. He told Variety, quote, BAFTA had told him that any swearing would be edited out of the broadcast. Perhaps these editors don't consider the N-word to be swearing. I don't know. Stephen.
I was like, how could you fail so badly on all levels?
On top of failing to cut out his slur in the form of a vocal tic, it turns out they were intent on getting clear audio of anything he said to exploit the outbursts as part of the programming.
He said he thought he was in safe hands at the BAFTAs and the BBC should have prevented his involuntary tics from being broadcast. Incredibly, he says there was a microphone near him.
He said, as I reflect on the auditorium, I remember there was a microphone just in front of me, and with hindsight, I have to question whether this was wise, so close to where I was seated, knowing I would tick.
Taken together, all of these pieces begin to paint a picture for me that this was sort of potentially a set-up to fail humiliation ritual for John Davidson, as well as for Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, and anyone else they didn't protect with proper editing orchestrated by the team behind the scenes. Allegedly. I hope I'm wrong here. I'm gonna be more gracious to them than I think that they've been to others.
No! Please! Please say psych!
The New York Times recently reported that an internal investigation has been launched by the BBC and BAFTA into who is responsible for the alleged mistake. But what do you mean, who is responsible? You literally know which editors or producers were in charge of catching things before they go to print. But we have seen what reality television programming has done in their desperation. We literally saw what Big Brother did in that whole JoJo Siwa and Mickey Rourke situation. May he enjoy his full and final eviction. And so, yeah, I would not put it past them for the ratings, even if they feel like they gotta kind of maybe sort of apologize. And again, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm always right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Okay, I know, it's a gift. Yes, thank you. And just when the situation couldn't get any more genuinely exhausting and vile, the tech oligarchs have entered the chat. As the story spread, Daddy Google did possibly the most unhinged, disgusting, almost laughably predictable bullshitery they possibly could. They sent an AI-generated alert to users' phones that repeated the N-word verbatim, and they also put it in print. Okay, you can now read the word as if I hate it here.
This is a screenshot from my very good friend, Lydia. That was in her notifications on her phone. I have made it a point to not curse on my page, but seriously, Google, what the fuck? We're tired. This is the worst Black History Month I have ever experienced in my entire life. This is shameful.
But we all know that Google won't be held accountable because it was their little, totally objective, non-biased, trained AI prodigal child who made the mistake, not the people behind it, right? This is literally why we've been saying for damn near the last year and a half, whatever, since this AI just been getting unhinged. We've literally been saying that AI itself is prioritizing white Eurocentric beauty standards in their AI slop imagery that it creates, is quite literally centering, platforming, and pushing and boosting white nationalist ideals, Christian nationalist ideals that are very, very harmful to people, is quite literally leaning into racism, stereotypes, prejudices, bigotry, everything you can imagine to anyone who is not white. Imagine in the 2026 year of our Lord that we are literally dealing with AI racism. People are like, oh no, it's just the machines. No, it's literally being trained upon all of the racism that exists all over the place. What do you mean racism doesn't exist anymore? Have you looked at Google lately? Now, Google did end up issuing an apology, but again, just like with the BBC and BAFTA airing the slur, it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Google has apologized after an AI-generated news alert about the BAFTA Film Awards racial slur incident included the N-word. Would you like to see the news alert that Google's AI sent out? Of course you would. Here it is. How the Tourette's fallout unfolded at the BAFTA film ... The Hollywood Reporter. See more on Nick. Interested? Not interested. See more on Nick. During Black History Month.
I am so deeply tired, y'all. Like, I can't even put to words how my spirit, my soul, my mind, and my body feel anymore, okay? The exponential rise and psychotic increase in the levels of racism that I've experienced, that I have witnessed my friends experience. Literally the moment this administration was put into place, when voting happened in November of, 2025, or literally overnight, the level of the N-word usage and racism that was targeted at me, that filled my DMs on Twitter, was out of control. I literally was like, oh, I don't really want to be on this platform much of anymore at all. And I mute my replies half the time because it just happens so much. And it's emboldened absolute losers, the worst drudges of society, the troglodytes that like feed on the fungus of the scummiest dirt. Literally the worst people that you know feel emboldened to be extra racist now, extra ableist too. And it's also laughable at this point. You know what I mean? It's like you come to this point where you're like, I laugh because I cannot cry anymore because holy you're such a loser if this is the way that you think and live and breathe in this world. And I hope you learn something, okay? Ignorance is real dumb, and you don't have to be, but you choose to be, and that's insane to me, okay? But you know, we're gonna keep doing what we do. Our community is gonna keep doing what we do and pushing forward and sharing critical thinking because that's what we do here as a community. I'm so thankful that we are on the right side of this thing that we call life. Dearly beloved Prince. And as award season trudged on, cast members from Sinners started speaking out on red carpets.
Institutionally, we still don't understand what inclusion means. Just because you invite someone into a space, but you don't provide the necessary resources to keep them and everyone else in that room safe by them being there, that's not inclusivity. That's exploitation. That man's disability got exploited that night, and it led to multiple offenses. That's the BAFTA's fault. And then the BBC, to air what they aired, right, is careless.
I think that we all have our own personal take on what happened at the BAFTAs. I want to hear your take on what happened with the BAFTAs.
I mean, I was there, and it was painful to have that celebration kind of really tainted for me. You know, I have no hard feeling toward John Davidson at all. Like, he has a condition. I feel like BAFTA has a lot of lessons to learn, but like I think Jamie Lawson said it like yesterday, it felt like exploitative and performative to have someone there without the full protection of everyone, including him and anyone in that audience. There were children in that audience. That's one thing, and then the BBC is a whole other thing. That's the bit that really kind of kept me awake at night and brought tears to my eyes.
And just as we were finishing up the story, the host of the BAFTAs, Alan Cumming, released a public statement calling the whole night a trauma-triggering show. Writing, quote, "I am so sorry for all the pain Black people have felt at hearing that word echoed round the world, and we were all let down by decisions made to both broadcast slurs and censor free speech." But something tells me that the BBC has a Sussy Award nomination in their future. And yes, we will be hosting the Sussies, okay? But I will say, as the update now that the Oscars have quite literally just happened just like a couple of hours ago, I am thrilled to say that Michael B. Jordan won his first Oscar for Best Actor in the film Sinners, literally the film that all of this, the BAFTAs thing happened, why he was there presenting. And so just major flowers to Michael B. Jordan, and the film itself won, I believe, 4 Academy Awards, which is such a tremendous feat. I will say also, in regards to Timothee Chalamet, which like tangentially has nothing to do with this BAFTA thing, but it's still very amusing to me. Y'all saw Timothee Chalamet, what he said about the opera and the ballet.
I admire people, and I've done it myself, to go on a talk show and go, hey, we gotta keep movie theaters alive. You know, we gotta keep this genre alive. And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or, you know, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership.
Timothee Chalamet disparages ballet and ballet dancers, which is insane. What are we doing? What do you mean you're out here disparaging iconic art forms? Period. Let alone the opera and ballet, such important art forms for all of our culture and where we are today. We don't have the arts and the culture that we have. It doesn't look like this if we didn't have opera, if we didn't have ballet. Yeah, well, did you know that ballet dancer Misty Copeland, an absolute icon, she had just had hip surgery, I think a few weeks ago, was recovering from it. And so, of course, Misty Copeland came out and had comments about Timothee Chalamet and his opinions of ballet, and she was very graceful in her quotes of them, and I think it was wonderful. She put him in his place without, she could have gone way harder than she did, but she put him in his place in like a very classy way. And it's just the icing on the cake that I needed today. Okay, Susperians, time to step out of the dark waters of the cesspool, grab a towel and dry off. That's what I got. Well, much of ourselves into this piece. I worked tirelessly for so long on that documentary piece, and we're gonna be doing more of that new style of like some of the cinematography and the different shots and positions, camera angles and stuff, as well as that new style of editing that we're gonna be folding into those pieces as well. We've got some big ones on the horizon. I'm working on an Epstein piece from an angle that is not heavily covered in a way to try to make sense of some of these elements. So that's a piece that we're working on. Also, curious question, would you guys like me to do a piece on Dr. Oz or Oprah? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. We also have some other projects in the works, so make sure that you're subscribed with the notifications turned on. Also, huge thank you to our channel members. I appreciate you all. And to our Patreon members, we just officially crossed 4,000 Patreon members. Thank you so much. We have free access as well as additional support access that you can join our Patreon community to get exclusive access to 4 more videos per month. That's 4 more exclusive, uncensored, unfiltered videos per month, plus the entire back catalog of videos that are only available on Patreon, including the podcast, extended episodes, and all of that stuff that I can't post here. You can also get on the free newsletter where I give you updates on what's going on, projects. You can weigh in on projects. You can see the trailers and some montage clips before the Swoop docs come out. So that gives you some early access as well. Of course, we've got our pieces from the Suspool Season 2 collection. We've got the Worthy collection, the Ballad Ribcage. All of that is available in the Swoop shop, also linked below. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Bluesky, linked below. Instagram is where I post most often and also talk about upcoming projects and things to have you featured if you want, give you updates on life. Also be sure to check out Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds. They are the perfect way to refresh your routine this spring and keep you aware while enjoying your favorite music and shows. Go to buyraycon.com/swoop2open. That's SWOOPTOOOPEN to get 20% off. Thanks Raycon for sponsoring, and treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Thanks for coming for a swim. Have a good day out there. Beware the creepy. Keep it cute, and I'll see you next time in the cesspool. Swoop!